Boxing Day 2024. I thought it would be a good time to go down a little memory lane and go through Shoppers World in Brampton, Ontario. It's a bit of a dead mall now, but I thought it'd be a good day to go see it. And I was absolutely shocked by the amount of cars that were in the parking lot because I've driven by here on some of the days leading up to Christmas, and this parking lot in front of us is absolutely empty. Two major stores on this side, Oceans and Kitchen Plus, were completely closed up. And I'm going to have a little bit of a store tracker going as I walk by closed stores. So it is a little shocking how much traffic was actually in this mall, seeing as it is a bit of a dead mall. But first, to give a little bit of history, this mall was opened in 1969 as the city's first indoor shopping mall. It was developed by a company called Peel Elder Limited. The mall then took on a massive renovation in 1971 where it went from 25 stores to 118 stores. So it really changed in 1971. I know for a fact that people had told me that there once was a movie theater in there one time, and I was like, there was never a movie theater in my lifetime. And I had to look back to those early days to actually find when there was a movie theater actually in this mall. And for me, growing up in the 80s as a young kid, I always loved coming to this mall because it was the biggest mall that we got to go to that was around, which is not saying much. But there was a Kmart in there, which always felt a little bit more special than going to Zellers, because Zellers was the closer store and there was more of them around. So it always felt a little more special going to Kmart. As well as, I never got to do it, but there was a huge water slide that you could see from the outside of the mall when you would drive by, and I'm sure every kid back in those days saw that water slide and wanted to go for a trip down the slide. I never actually did get to do it. It wasn't around for long. I think it was only 2 years technically that it was open, but it always looked like it would be fun to do. And those years would actually be 1984 to 1985. There was another round of renovations that changed this mall up as well. And down this hallway, there actually used to be so many stores that they actually had a store underneath the main walkway where you would walk down to a Byway, which is going back a long time because they've been out of business forever. But it was always a novel thing. It's something you always went to do, and it was kind of like a staple of Canadian stores that, you know, every kid in the 80s and 90s kind of grew up with. And there was a food court coming up down here to the left as well. You'll see a food court on the right now, but just past the Tim Hortons that we're coming up on the left, there used to be a food court in there. And the new one's more centralized and probably easier for people from all over the mall to go to, but the old food court just kind of was a typical beat-up 80s food court, and it was kind of shabby, but it was kind of memorable. Not to mention back in the day when, you know, you actually had to go to a Ticketmaster to buy tickets and you couldn't just buy them online. There was a Sunrise Records, which is also not there anymore, but it's coming up and it's on the left here. It'll be the store with the green sign. And I remember many years ago, the Tragically Hip were putting out a concert and I really wanted to go. And I got in line. I sat there for at least an hour and a half, 2 hours. I got up, they're processing my tickets, and their guy's like, okay, everything's good, and then he's like, and they're sold out. So I was the last person in a huge line that did not get in there and did not get my tickets. And then I left the mall and I went to the gym, and then I came, I was actually on the gym. I heard them on the radio saying that they released another concert. So I ran back and got in line again. Same thing again. The guy was processing the tickets and it got sold out on me twice in one day while it was processing the tickets. So that's not the greatest memory in this mall, but it's always a memory of going here and buying tickets from Ticketmasters at Sunrise Records. And I'm sure everyone has certain memories of this mall. I remember picking up a bus out in front of the Kmart, which would take me off to a camp back in those days as well, when my mom would drop us off here to get the bus for a camp. So there's lots of memories I'm sure everyone that's in the Brampton area kind of remembers this mall for. So it is kind of a shame to see all of these places closed. But they are building something new, and they're still going to have some retail underneath it. They're building a whole bunch of high-rise buildings, and then they're going to have some retail underneath some of the spots. And I did walk in at one point to one of the stores that's no longer there because they've hung up some pictures and stuff like that. But it's better to honestly just go online and Google it if you're curious what they're going to build there. But it is changing dramatically. And this wing down here has always been kind of the quieter end of the mall. And there's more things down here that just don't interest the mass amount of shoppers, and they just kind of walk through here. There's like a lawyer, a bookstore, a library, I think, actually, not bookstore. There's a Rogers here that's actually moved to another location in the mall. I was still counting it as closed because they moved it to another spot that another location had closed in, so it's still one store down. There are certain things that I didn't count as closed because they still had signs up and they still had labels. I think they were just closed for the day, so I didn't count any of those when I was doing my little count of store closures. But you can see there's just a massive amount of closed stores, and even some that kind of surprised me, mostly in the food court, that you would have thought would have been open on a day like today, where they were just closed, which was very surprising. But it is what it is. It definitely seemed like the electronic wireless phone places were the places that were the busiest. Here's one actually right now, and it is neat seeing the kids scoot around on those little animals. Those are popped up in more and more malls. I did work in this mall for probably 2 years, and I don't remember seeing those in the mall. And there was also a train going by every once in a while that I don't remember seeing back in those days, and it might just be on for Christmas, or maybe they're trying to keep some life in this mall while they're going through the transitions, because they are definitely trying to lease out some of these spots. The renovations to the new versions aren't supposed to be done until 2040, so there is a long time for a store to potentially get in here into some of these locations and stay there. It's just they might not be able to stay in that exact location for that entire time as they move places underneath these high rises. That'll happen. I'm sure that'll be an interesting transition for people to see and do, and I'm sure the stores that stick through it, going underneath the high rises, will be fantastic for a lot of them, because they'll have kind of a captured market of people that are living in those high rises that'll bring them in. Some stuff like the dollar store and Rexall and things like that. I'm sure it'll do very well for them once it opens up and they've done all the construction. I was never a big fan of Arbys, but I do remember an Arbys being in a location just walked by right there that's also closed up now. The food court is not the greatest food court. When I was here last, there was about 3 more stores in this little section that were all closed. So this is actually much better than it was the last time I was in this mall. There's only 2 locations in this run here that are closed. One was an ice cream place, and I don't remember what this one down here by the Reuben or Bourbon Street Grill was. I can't remember off the top of my head. But the selection actually looked a little bit better. But unfortunately, some of these places like the Jamaican Grill was closed, because I do love some Jamaican sandwiches and stuff like that, and jerk chicken. So I don't know if they had that or not, but it would have been nice. And the pizza place wasn't here last time I was here as well. So it is interesting to see what has gone in, and it'll be interesting to see how long they stay there for. This is by far the busiest I've seen this mall in a long time. I already mentioned that, but last time I was here, there just was nobody. Like, you could have thrown a bowling ball down the aisle. I know it's Boxing Day, but at the exact same time, and there's that train I mentioned. It is surprising, even on a day like Boxing Day, that the amount of people went to this dead mall versus, say, driving to Square One, where it's a little bit busier and more stores and stuff like that. And Square One's not that far from Shoppers World, or even Bramley City Centre in Brampton as well. Like, that's a much nicer mall nowadays. And that's one of the things that has kind of killed off Shoppers World, is the success of Bramley City Centre, I think. I will say, as I'm going by the dollar store, I have become a fan of the dollar store. I never used to shop there or go there, because I used to work for Walmart for a long time. And when you're in those buildings all the time, there's no need to go to a dollar store. But now that I'm no longer working there, dollar stores are great. That being said, I have talked to some people that have been offered management positions in those stores, and we'll just say they don't compensate very well, which is not surprising. But when I did work in this mall, some of the ladies that used to work for me, they would go to this bubble tea place, and I had never had bubble tea, and oh yeah, I was hooked. If that line wasn't so big, I would have gone in and grabbed some bubble tea, because it is fantastic. The ladies that got me into that, they definitely enjoyed that, and I enjoyed it too. You can see over top of the fabric land too, there's a walkway. So once upon a time, over top of that walkway, there used to be all kinds of things. I want to say there was like music. There was definitely a music lessons place there. I want to say there was like kind of some karate type things. There was all kinds of businesses, probably tax and other services up there. Those are all long gone. Cinnabon here. Oh, I love Cinnabon. So that's kind of sad to see that gone. And coming up towards the end, another big Kitchen Plus is gone. So there's just so many things that are gone, not to mention all these small stores here that are gone. So it will be interesting to see what this looks like before they start demolishing parts of the mall to build the new buildings. But as we're coming to an end, you know, I got 32 stores closed, but I was being on the generous side on a couple of them. And like I said, I didn't count any of the little businesses that used to be up on that upper deck. Nothing's up there anymore, and there used to be at least a dozen stores up there. So stores, services, stuff like that.
And that's
so
shocking.
Where Ocean's Food was, this Iqbal Foods going in there, that'll be interesting to see how that transitions. And I'm thinking if they're going to put that much money into a building, a box that size, that they mustn't be demolishing this part of the mall for quite some time. So I don't know the story on Oceans, but this is kind of coming to a wrap on my video, and I hope you enjoyed a little bit of a trip down memory lane and a look at Shoppers World